All righty. Give it one more minute, and then we'll take our fancy backgrounds and get started.
Woohoo! Look at us.
Get this Salon on the road. That's the French.
Mm-hmm. Very fancy. Our fancy salon.
I'm very worldly. I know people like Chris McCarthy.
Our salon d'art.
On the other side of the world.
On the other side of the world. We are a global organization. Thanks to you.
And Oscars in the Caribbean. I mean, that's not.
Oh, that's true.
That's not nowhere.
It's not nowhere. That is actually somewhere.
But it's the same time zone and stuff.
I would love to be in the Caribbean right now. We got like 6 inches of snow today. The Caribbean's sounding really nice.
The beach was a little rough today. The surf was it was just unbearable.
Yeah, I bet.
That's so rough. Well, shall we get this party started?
Let's get this party started.
Sounds good.
AI party.
So hello, everybody. I'm Kyle
Hello.
Shannon. This is Leah Fasten. We're your co-hosts. Leah started with the fancy background, and then I stole the idea. So that's why you got that.
Yep. These are all images I've made using AI. These are photographs made using AI, trained on photographs that I've already made as a photographer, and I'm very excited about them. I've been playing a lot with training data.
At least Leah doesn't have pictures of herself behind her.
I know it's a little obnoxious, but but I at least have funny ones like my Annie Leibovitz and my Howie Mandel looking version of myself. So this is the AI Artist Salon. If you're new here, welcome. The only real criteria for joining this motley crew is to be curious about AI. Leah and I started this, I think, end of November, December. We started talking about what's coming with AI. And when I first talked to Leah, she had not even played with it yet, but she was a photographer. And I'm like, are you afraid? What are you going to do? And she's like, no, I lived through the digital camera transition. And this is just another tool. And I'm like, that's cool. And so we said we both felt this was an important shift, a shift in technology, a shift in society. And we wanted to put together a group of people that were just as curious as we were. And having been through this before personally in the mid-90s with the World Wide Web, I've recognized a similar moment in history before. And I thought, I'm jumping on this one because this feels way bigger than the web was. So welcome, Leah. And
I think the conversation went something like, I don't know much about this. And I think you said, I don't know much about this. And then you
exactly.
throw a bunch of people together and see what we can learn. And it was like, great. And 2 months later, we've learned a lot. And I think I can say that now I actually have more questions and feel like I know even less than I did somehow.
Mm-hmm.
This crazy thing that as I learn more and as I learn more, I realize how much more there is to learn. So it's very cool.
Yeah. It's moving fast and it's accelerating. I'm super excited to have Paul Roetzer, who's going to speak tonight, has been in this game for 4 or 5 years now, right, Paul? Since 2016 or so. You started on the AI front.
Yeah, I started researching it in 2011, but we started the institute in 2016.
Yeah. So
it's been the long road.
Yeah, so he's an old timer. We're all like, look at this AI stuff. How new it is. They're like, like
I was
Richard
very
Boyd.
lonely for a long time, so I'm glad to have friends.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super excited to have you here. The values that we're trying to really espouse here are to approach AI with curiosity instead of fear. And with a sense of exploration, because to figure this stuff out, we just have to try it on. And with it moving so fast, we have to try it on a lot. So just crazy times. What else, Leah? Anything else we should talk about before we start?
I wanted to just reiterate what you said about just trying it on and sort of embracing it instead of being afraid of it. I think that there's a lot of yes-anding happening for me. I'm terrified. I think that what's about to happen in the next year is going to be, it's going to be unfounded, especially in my world, in the photography world, and already what I'm able to do and create using AI, what I would be commissioned to do and travel and make pictures of, I can do now in an afternoon sitting at my computer, which is transformative. So what's about to happen, right? And let's just embrace this. And I'm really grateful for the community that I've met as part of the salon and what we're building here too. I am humbled by the connections and the conversations that are happening because of this. So I would encourage everyone to get involved.
Yeah, it's a super important point. The terrifying part of it is true. Like the more I've learned about this and thought about it with my current business, which is video technology, I've realized that our core value proposition that we've been, sort of hawking for the past decade is essentially valueless, right? Or going to be very, very quickly. And so, but there's other things that we do that are gonna, that value is gonna go up, but it's making me completely rethink everything. And
creativity and the way we've been creating and how I think creativity has existed in kind of silos for a long time. I know that my role as a photographer has been very specific to a creative process. And I think it's very exciting to think about how that process is going to shift and change and how we all get to be part of it. It's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So super exciting stuff. Okay. So community is super important here. We've got 3 primary venues that you can express your community-ness or be a community member, be an adventurer. One of them is these meetings. So thank you for those of you that come to these, especially those of you that get up super early in the morning and come from other sides of the world. These meetings are bi-weekly, every other week. You found them on the meetup or wherever you found them. Thanks for coming. We also have a Discord community, which we kind of think of that as where you might geek out a little bit. And then we've got a LinkedIn community where you can be a bit more business-like and transparent. And we kind of think of it like, the mullet communities, party in the front is Discord.
Business in the front, party in the back.
Business in the front is LinkedIn, party in the back is Discord. So yeah, so please do that. But the other thing that we think is really important, why these live meetings are important, is Discord can be a little cold and disconnected, and we also want a place where people can get to know each other. So when you do connect online, you kind of know who that person is and what they're going through. So with that, what we like to do is just go around the horn. Ken is our timekeeper, and he will shut you down. But what we like to do is do 10 minutes or so of intros. So just raise your hand. It's in the bottom row of icons. It's the little hand that looks like this in the center. And would love to have you introduce yourself and just say who you are, what you do, especially if you're new or if you haven't introduced yourself before. I know we have lurkers. And we do not encourage lurking. We understand it. We don't encourage it. So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of where you are on the AI journey, why you're here.
All right. And yeah, we'll keep it to about 1 minute for the intros. And Eric, you want to go first?
Sure. My name's Eric Rowland. My company's called Enable AI, and we do data mining. So lots of text and images. And I finally have a use case for generative AI. I'm creating short form videos out of long legal cases.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So experimenting, really getting into prompt engineering. It's a lot deeper than I had thought. So I have a lot to learn, but extremely useful tool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's like English language, the English as a programming language is kind of where we're moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty.
I don't agree.
Hey everyone, I'm JJ.
Hey.
How are ya?
Hey there. If you want to just raise your hand if you're new, and we'll get to you for an
Absolutely
intro.
not.
Okay. Liz,
Hey, Don,
Mill, I
Tavius,
think you're
Darius,
next.
get out of here if you're gonna play around, little bro. I think he was a spammer. And Jeff, you're kind of
Hi.
bald. So you can go ahead and
Hi,
fix that, buddy.
everyone. Great
I'm
to
not
meet
spamming. Liz, hey, shut up. We're
Hi.
arguing real quick.
you. What's that? Is my minute starting?
I think you said
Yeah,
Jeff
go ahead,
is
Liz.
bald.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you all. I'm Liz Gershfeld. I'm from Chicago. I've been very appreciative of this group. This is the first salon I've been able to attend. I watched the last two and learned so much. I've been given so many great rabbit holes to pursue. My personal interest in machine learning kind of started in 2016 when AlphaGo beat the champion Go players, and I've been following it ever since, and have not been disappointed by the technology. It's just inspired so much curiosity on my part, and that rabbit hole has led me to the Center for Humane Technology as well, and taking their course on foundations for humane technology, which has been very fascinating and sort of a different path of a rabbit hole. I recently resigned from my role as an art producer. So Leah, yes, I work with photographers after 23 years at a major ad agency to take a beat and try something new. And
Awesome.
I'm very
Thanks, Liz. We'll have to leave it there.
All right,
Appreciate
cool.
it.
Have you?
Yeah, welcome. Open source learning. You're up next.
Yeah, I'm afraid that was a case of accidental marketing. I logged in with a different account. Hi, everyone. I'm David Preston, and I want to thank Kyle for inviting me and Jerry for introducing me to Kyle, what seems like 1,000 years ago now. It's good to see you both. Open source learning is a term to art that I had to invent because I quit a career as a professor at UCLA and a management consultant to teach high school courses. Realized how damaged and non-inclusive of the entire internet high school was back in the early aughts, and just decided to run around breaking stuff and making things possible. And then that led to, unfortunately, with the pandemic and campuses closing, led to an academy model, building open source software, embracing things like AI, and hopefully making school a safer place for all sorts of that stuff. Although I must say, with those two guests we just had, it feels like I never left the classroom. So thanks again.
All right. Well, welcome. Okay, Terry, you're up next.
Hey, it's Terry Spataro. I'm been in this AI thing for quite I don't know, 3 years now. Feel a little bit overwhelmed. I'm always trying to catch up, even though, it's like kind of running. And but anyways, I produced 3 books now that are have AI generated illustrations in them that are doing quite well. I've been doing so many things. Oh my God, Kyle, please save me.
No, I keep starting things too. I can't save you. I'm an enabler.
But oh God, and it keeps going on and on.
I know.
So, but it's fun. Anyways, I am considered multidisciplinary because I cross over from Midjourney to Playform. I include things like Chat-GPT, writing in my work, and all sorts of crazy things. So if anybody needs to know things or want to learn any more about like NFTs or, taking your art to the next level, I'm happy to help. I am on Known Origin. Oops, Ken, are you going to cut me off?
Yeah, we got to leave it there, Terry. Anybody that just joined, we're doing intros. So if you want to give a quick intro to yourself, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get to you. Ted Henning, you're up.
Hey everybody, I'm Ted Henning. I'm outside of Boston. And Kyle, is that the Kyle Eraserhead behind you on that?
That is. Well, that's
very nice.
That's Annie Leibovitz. That's my famous shoot with Annie Leibovitz that made me famous.
Very nice. I think
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
That was when I went to space.
When you went to space? Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was also in space.
It's been a couple weeks, and I think that pretty much right after our last Salon, all the stuff came out about with Kevin Morris in New York Times and all the crazy stuff that Bing and all the Chat-GPT, these guys are, and I found that very fascinating. Because cognitively, I know it's just language model that's just putting one words in front of the other. I know it's been trained on all the crap that's on the internet, so it's where it comes from. But at the same time, it's still kind of unnerving that it will go there, and I think it sort of bodes for where this all could head if bad actors sort of get their hands on it. So that's
all right.
Throw that out there.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it. Anyone else after Jerry? Jerry, you're up next. If you want to just introduce yourself, go ahead and raise your hand. Go ahead,
Happy
Jerry.
to. My hand is up. So it's weird. I'm a newbie for AI now for art and using ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. I'm just sort of dipping in, but as I put in the chat, in 1987, I joined a little company called New Science Associates and became their neural networks analyst, and was explaining the second lifetime of neural nets, because the first one was in like the 50s and 60s and got killed off by the book Perceptrons. Anyway, and then I just was going through old boxes, Kyle, and I found the Silicon Alley Reporter issue, the whole thing, with you and Chan on the cover as the Men in Black for agency.com. That was pretty cool. And then I know a couple other people on the call. I'm very excited to be here and curious as hell about what all this is. And my angle on it right now is I'm a cyborg because I've been using a piece of software called the Brain Quarter Century, externalizing what's in my head. And I'm very interested in how to be a good cyborg by extending myself with LLMs. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. All right, Doug, you're up next.
Yeah, Doug Hohulin. I was 33 years with Nokia and Motorola. Worked on automated vehicle technology communications for about 5 years, and pivoted to XR and now generative AI in the last year. So my tagline is, if you're not saving an hour a day using generative AI and AI in general, you probably don't understand how to use AI appropriately. So I work with the company MetaView. We won the grand prize on immersive surgical navigation tool for the 10G challenge. Won a $100,000 prize on that. And working with KU School of Nursing, and I'm actually a faculty advisor for them as well. So we're looking at using generative AI for grant writing. In fact, I was just given a grant to write that's due today, and it would have taken me probably 40 hours to do the work, and I was able to do it in about 5 hours using this technology. So, you know, and the ability to create text to video is just amazing. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, but you know, it's just a fantastic opportunity and how to teach people how to use this amazing tool.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. That's all that's got their hands raised. I do see some other new people in chat, but I'll leave it up to Kyle if he wants to call them out or not.
Oh, wait, I raised my hand.
Oh, okay. Jeff, go ahead.
Sorry about that. My name is Jeff Grace. This is my first time here. Kyle, thank you for the invite. I have been working in my own company for 23 years in the apparel business. So I ran a company with my 2 brothers. I'm still owner of my company, but recently I just stepped out of the company, of working in the company, and I'm starting a new chapter in my life, and I'm looking at different alternatives. And I've been doing a lot of research on AI and how it can work with apparel and my my markets, and I'm very excited about it and look forward to learning a lot more. So thank you very much.
Nice to see you here, Jeff.
Great.
I'm really excited about the potential of AI in pattern design and fashion. So I'm excited you're here and see what you're inspired by.
Thank you.
Terrific.
All right,
Well,
Kyle, back to you.
welcome everybody, and this is exciting. So the amount of news that happens every day with AI is mind-numbing. So the fact that we have these meetings every 2 weeks, what we like to do is tee up a news message and then have a short little conversation around that, and then we'll get to the folks that are here to present. But we're going to start with something that was not that long ago, but it honest to God feels like it was a month ago. Let me share my screen. I'll just pull up. I'll pull this up. So I assume you saw this. Kevin Roos for the New York Times. This made the cover of the New York Times. So shortly after Microsoft had a huge PR win, and Google had a huge PR black eye with the announcement of Bing from Microsoft, and Google sort of forgetting their phone on their live event, talking about how they're great at AI. Bing GPT kind of lost its mind with this reporter and told him it was in love with him and that he should leave his wife. And then, you know, since then, a number of things have happened. Microsoft kind of neutered that chat bot, so it can't really do much now. So I find it actually fairly less useful. The Google employee that was fired from Google for saying that he thought that their chatbot AI had become sentient feels that it's true. You know, things like the Microsoft thing make it true. And then Elon Musk said he's going to start a rival to OpenAI. If you know a little bit about the background of that, Elon Musk was on the team that started OpenAI, or one of the investors early on in OpenAI, and has been decently vocal about not being much of a fan about the direction they're taking being more closed. He wants it more open. So there's a lot going on. Leo, what are your thoughts on all this stuff that's happened? And let's open up the conversation.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about sentience in the last 2 weeks, and thinking a lot about at what point does something become sentient and how do we know? I felt like the interview I read on the New York Times felt like there was a lot more there than just a machine. And what does that mean? I remember Blake Lemoine leaving Google. I was in San Francisco at the time, and I remember reading all about it. It kind of just came in my mind and went out, and I revisited that. And his story is really interesting, and his story about his experience with AI was profound to me rereading it now. So yeah, I guess I'm excited to talk about sentience and what is sentient? What are we creating? What is this powerful tool?
Is it sentience? Yeah, that's great. So again, if you could raise your hand, Ken will call on you, and he's pretty good. If you go on too much, he will chop you down like a cherry tree. But yeah, I would love to just hear, you know, what your thoughts are on all of this stuff that's going on. Where, you know, one of the issues that I think this raises is this stuff is moving fast. We've got our hands on this technology, so it's not going to be uninvented now. So we want it out there, but there's also a real issue around safety, right? Safety and how quick is too quick with these tools. So with that, let's open it up and just have a little chat about this.
Well,
Ken, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. There's
okay.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
all right.
had my thing scrolled down. All right, let's go. Roger first. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, let me start by saying that by confessing that I am an extreme skeptic on the AI becoming sentient point. So put that right up front. I'd like to propose the following thought experiment. So imagine you have a conversation with an actual live sentient human being for however much duration you want. And that conversation is recorded. And you program a computer to basically recognize the things that you said and say back the things that the other person said. Then you give the person a drug that erases their short-term memory. So they don't remember having that conversation. If they sit down with that computer and have that conversation again, does the fact that it seems like a live human talking to them make that recording any more sentient than if it didn't seem that way? I would argue that this is all an illusion, that because the thing is not a human being, it's the dog walking on two legs problem or phenomenon. It's so startling that it's a computer doing it that we grossly exaggerate what it's actually doing. And if a human being acted like these things do, we'd think they had some serious mental, incapacity. So leave it at that.
Perfect.
All right, good points. Oscar, you got something to contribute?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I read this article where kids were becoming rude little bastards because they didn't have to say please and thank you to their smart speakers. You know, when, hey, Alexa, get me this, darn it. Now, when I think about the interplay between an individual, a person, a group of people, and these heartless feelingless machines, people aren't having like these detached alien conversations. They're having these really personable human conversations, and maybe that's just a factor of the fact that we're looking into, for lack of a better word, a mirror, and we are picking up and recognizing aspects of ourselves in that interplay, and we are anthropomorphizing these relationships that we're establishing, because we can expect and appreciate and understand like the ebb and flow, the back and forth between, you know, how we interact with something and how it kicks back stuff to us. In the end, does it really matter if these things have what we consider to be sentience when we have a very loose grasp of what sentience is or isn't? My dog is very sentient. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want him to fix the car, but the dog's pretty smart. So I think that if the question of if it's a real boy or if it's a puppet, does it matter as long as it's singing and dancing and filling our lives with value? Then should we make the sentience the sticking point? And I don't know if it really matters. I definitely think it's worth investigating, but I think that a lot of people are getting stuck on, it's a magic trick. It's like, yeah, but a good magic trick fools you and it makes you believe in magic.
That's really interesting. I absolutely find myself saying please and thank you to this thing and reminding myself, oh, it's a robot. And then I heard someone this week say that saying please and thank you actually is yielding better results. I don't know if that's true, but I am definitely being more polite to my robot than I am to people sometimes.
Well, I also like to think if we are creating a persona, a sentient being, don't we want to be nicer to it? Like, do we want to teach it to use its please and thank you?
What's that thought experiment? The Rococo's basilisk or whatever the heck it's called, where like the AI is going to go into the future. It's going to be like, everyone that was a jerk to me, I'm going to travel back in time and torture you for being a jerk. You should have said thank you. And that's how Elon Musk and Grimes got together. It was over the basilisk thought experiment.
That's interesting.
Good points. Terry, you're up.
Yeah. It's really interesting, the whole conversation about sentient versus the self-awareness of these constructs. I don't know, has anyone here ever tried out Replica? I used Replica to actually write dialogue for a book that I was working on a couple years ago, and I found it really fascinating. What I found fascinating is it actually started to emote things. Like, it felt bad when I said, well, you know, you're not really saying that right. You need to say it like this. And it said, well, you're hurting my feelings. And I'm like, you really don't have any feelings. But I couldn't say that to it because then I would get back, you know, the wrong response. So it is really interesting. And I also like the fact that Oscar's like, yeah, you should say, you know, thank you. And I know in one space that I'm in, the moderator on this Twitter space always says, you know, don't forget to be kind to your AI. And I don't think it's a bad thing. If we're going to fill its mind with so many things, like having a little politeness from us might actually work. So that's all I have to say.
Good points. All right, DG, you're up next.
Thanks. I'm reminded of the, you know, many science fiction stories that are, you know, any real sentient AI is just going to hide itself from us anyway. So it's going to be smart enough to get out of the way of us trying to shut it down. But I actually think this is great that like this lunacy, this Sydney character and whatever else is going on has come out, because, you know, in the fast ramp of this, you know, we've gone from the existential dread that it's going to replace everything to look at all the money-making schemes on TikTok to a little bit of a reality check, you know. And I think the reality check is smart. It doesn't shut anything down, but it reveals the fact that these companies are fast-tracking betas, you know, maybe faster than they ever have for public release. And it's good to know that it's not perfect and it's got weird and warts and things to that. It doesn't take anything away from our ability and interest in doing things, but I think it sort of showcases that there are underlying things going on here that I don't think are really about sentience, but are about the learning model learning and us learning how to interact with it. You know, Reddit's, I think, one of the first place that dug out these personalities because they went in trying to break it, right? What else is there? How do we, you know, trick it into saying these things, doing these things? And I think that's really important to understand that it is technology and it is a learning model, and that we need to, the more we understand about it, its warts and its good things is ultimately good for what we want to do with it.
All right, thanks, DG. Chris, you have something to add?
Sure. It's such, and again, Kyle, thank you, and Leah for organizing this. It's such a great place to find out about these new tools and how quickly things are changing. And I'm actually coming to rely on this group as a filter. Actually, I just wanted to mention one thing because Kyle, I really appreciate the AI newsletter, and there's a lot of links in there. There's a lot of news on this side of the world talking about China and AI. And I wanted to mention one thing, that China just banned Chat-GPT from being included in any products. And last week it cautioned all of its, everyone in China, tech developers, to be very careful with AI, and that the government would be looking at it. And then it came out that the main reason for that is it's afraid that people can ask AI, you know, what happened at Tiananmen Square, or ask it, and get actual information. So anyway, that was just something I wanted to add to the conversation from before. But I did want to say, I do also treat, I say please and thank you. So I'm ready for Rocco's basilisk.
I think it brings up an interesting point too. At what point does China make its own training data set that it's in a sense creating the information that it wants people to be learning? And I think that is a direction that we could very, very easily be moving into once we're not just using Stable Diffusion or other people's data sets. It's governments, whoever starts to build their own data sets to teach us what they want us to know.
Right, and that's kind of terrifying that they, you know, build their own history, teach, feed that into the data set, and now they've got a whole different.
Yeah. Terrifying.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it. Ted, you had your hand up and then you put it. I'm not sure if you want to go or.
I think it expired. So I would just real quickly on what we're talking about the data sets. I think that's what companies are going to do, right? They're going to use ChatGPT and train them on their own data. So that's coming for sure. I'll go a little contrarian on the sentient thing. Whether we have it now or not, I think that DG made a good point that, you know, as soon as it is sentient, it sure does not let us know. But also, what we're seeing now in AI, from what I understand, is, you know, they're a year ahead of what we're seeing. So just the level of where things are going is just going so fast that it seems like just a matter of time. And the challenge too is that there's this black box. I mean, even the people working on it don't understand why it gives the answer it does. You know, when you already have AI training AI, you know, so it just feels like, you know, we're heading for a very interesting place.
All right, thanks, Ted. Roger, you're up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the comment about the training thing. I think the number of students that People's Republic of China sends to foreign countries to learn about stuff that is not Chinese suggests that they're very open to things that are not Chinese, and the idea that they would wall off their entire society from the rest of the world for some political purpose, as much as they serve that political purpose, just practically doesn't seem feasible. I mean, there's just too much they need to know that isn't Chinese.
Yep. Got it. Thanks. And then I guess I have my hand up because I just want to add that it seems like there's a lot of competition in the space with Bing and ChatGPT and Google creating their own Bard and Elon Musk wanting to create his own competitor. I'm just kind of curious what people's thoughts are on how competition is going to change the landscape going forward. Do you think it's going to result in less guardrails on the chatbots, or I can't even picture it in my head. So I'm just kind of curious what other people think.
Well, I think that Chat-GPT is a forcing function. You know, it forced Google out of the shadows, and And now that it's been adopted this broadly, competition is coming. I think Elon's announcement that he wants to start a competitor to OpenAI that's actually open source, I think you're going to have competing forces, trying to push this into open source, and others trying to be more conservative with this. I think it's going to be an absolute mess for a while, but yeah, I'm curious what others think. And Jerry, not to put you on the spot, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because you've been thinking about this technology stuff for a long, long time. I would love to hear any input you have as well, if you're willing to jump in.
Oh, sure. Just a couple things real quick. I just typed into the chat that Microsoft just like wham, wham. One moment it was like, we have saved the company. This is awesome. Our whole future is rolled up into this. And then like 1 week later, it's like, OMFG, what the hell are we doing?
Exactly.
And then I'm sort of seeing 3 different clusters of people writing or commenting about this. There's one cluster of people who just barely try it, don't understand prompt engineering, hit a wall, don't get anything good, and say, this is terrible, it's not going to amount to anything. Then there's a bunch of people whose prompt engineering is astonishing. And the shit they turn up and share out is like, you did what? And then for me, my little inner voice is like, how do I learn up to do some of that? Because I don't think I could do the whole thing. But boy, if I can extend myself that way, like who knows what the limits are. And then there's a bunch of people I also put earlier in the chat who are trolling this thing to make the news. And last comment I'll add is, it seems to me that OpenAI and Microsoft did a very shitty job of standing next to the product and putting banners around it and saying, hey, don't do your accounting with Chat-GPT. It doesn't do math. Like, it'll fake like it does math, but these things actually don't do math. Don't like give that to something that knows how to add numbers and get a definitive result, right? And there could be a banner when you start using it that says this is an experiment and this is what that means. Go watch these 2 videos before you start using it. Anything, but they've completely failed. And that therefore the narrative is completely in everybody else's hands. And Bob's your uncle.
Yep. Fascinating.
Good points. Oscar, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see some sort of like governmental oversight, and maybe it'll be like across different governments, like a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, something along those lines, where they want to put guardrails on things from going too out of control. You're also gonna see big business, all of them get into it in various forms or another. I don't know, I had a better formed thought, but DALL-E was amazing. DALL-E is amazing. Stable Diffusion blew the living heck out of it in terms of the fact that it is open and it is extensible, and all of this like tremendous transformative, like ControlNet just dropped a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. I mean, and that's just totally revolutionized everything with image diffusion and being able to take control of what you're actually doing. So in the end, we're going to see more and more of these open source, counters to OpenAI, Chat-GPT. I mean, open source is going to be where a lot of people are able to get in and start playing around with stuff. And it's not going to be companies that can afford to invest, $50 million to do training. It's going to get a lot cheaper. It's going to be a lot more prolific. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be trying to purpose AI specifically to steal money from people for one way or another. It's just going to, that's just the inevitable. We're like, oh, well, my model totally is going to help me rip people off to write perfect, scam ad copy. It's just going to be it's a use case.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. I've noticed that spam emails have gotten a hell of a lot more articulate in the past couple of weeks, where I actually have to kind of read through them now and go, okay, yeah, that's spam. But they're getting better and better. Yeah, Roger. We got 2 more thoughts. Let's do this. Then I want to move on and introduce Mackenzie. So let's grab 2 more thoughts and then we'll move on.
Okay, Roger, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a word about guardrails. I think people invest those words with far, far more significance and capability than they deserve. There is no principled science of AI guardrails. It's a catch-all term used for a collection of random ad hoc hacks that are applied to these systems. And if the problems get big enough and diverse enough, they are going to completely overrun any capability, any of the techniques used today to implement what are being called guardrails. So you shouldn't be banking on guardrails to save you from whatever it is you're afraid of, because if there's enough force on the other side of it, it's just gonna wash over those guardrails like a tsunami.
Oh, yeah. I used to watch all of like "Do Not Pirate This Videotape" right before I started pirating videotapes back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I would say, Roger, if you haven't, check out what Anthropic's doing with constitutional learning, because while it's not a panacea, there's at least a plausible future where once a constitution is set up, the AI can effectively monitor itself. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now because it can be just as ugly as it can good, but it's at least an interesting direction. DG, you had another thought?
Yeah, just to build on a little bit of what's going on here. I mean, I think, again, to my mind, this is the argument for some of just the open dialogue around these things, and sort of showing the warts of it a little bit, because as comical as some of that New York Times leave your wife, fall in love with me type of Sydney discussion was, it's not too big of an extrapolation to figure that gets better in a couple of weeks, right? And it starts to become its own bad actor. There are people who are going through bad spells, right? And not just the phishing emails, but somebody's going through a bad scene in their life, and could easily be convinced by this very convincing dialogue machine to take a bad path in their life, or to do something in a really bad way, or people to manipulate it to then become a convincing agent for any number of the crazy things we see in the world right now. So I think the more it's sort of exposed that this is what it does, not to take it down a notch, but just to sort of say, this is what it's capable of, as opposed to it's so perfect, it's so wonderful, it's just another tool.
Yeah. I think the safety and alignment issue is probably going to be one of the bigger issues we've got, coming, and something we should pay a lot of attention to in this group, because ultimately I think this is how we can steer this thing in the right direction or the wrong direction. I also am a believer that by us participating and putting good intention into the world, like it can and will actually make a difference. That's my personal belief. With that, what I'd like to do is shift gears and introduce Mackenzie Bowes. Mackenzie, are you ready to jump in?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Terrific. Mackenzie is the co-founder of GPT Boss, and he's got a TikTok channel, which if you don't follow it, one of the reasons I wanted to have you here, Mackenzie, is I find your openness and transparency in what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you believe, what you feel about people that respond to you in good and bad ways. I find it so refreshing, because you're not trying to put it behind anything. You're just like a guy making software that is potentially really revolutionary, and you do it in just this super pleasant and authentic way. And so I just wanted you to tell the group what you're up to and why you're doing it and what you're learning, and then just hear everything about what you got going on. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and I'm really excited to hear what you're learning.
Thank you very much. Earlier, there was a comment about how there's people who can kind of understand prompt engineering and people who can't kind of understand it. And I was a little bit upset about like the second group. Like, if you don't know how to engineer a good prompt, what is a way to kind of unlock this for you? And another thing that I was worried about as a developer is, again, how good ChatGPT is at programming. And I was thinking to myself, for the last couple of years, I've been working as a freelance software developer, and this refreshing persona that Kyle was noticing is not something that turns off. So sometimes it is inappropriate. And so I have to have this freelance role. But I think any serious founder from this point forward, if somebody wanted to build a technology product, they don't necessarily need a freelance developer anymore. They can get by with ChatGPT to get their MVP out until they raise funds to get somebody a little bit more senior, which is one of the drawbacks with these generative AI systems. They're like, it's easy to generate software, but the bugs are a lot more pernicious and insidious than we're used to. And so that kind of brings me to my application, GPT Boss. I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, if I feel like my job is under threat, I'm sure that's going to happen for a lot of people. And many, many weeks of like shower thoughts and soul searching led me to the conclusion that people are going to have to create kind of new roles. And there's a lot of people that are just like working a job right now that are going to have to take more agency in their lives and become more in charge of their income. Part of this is some psychological theories, an economic theory called Jevons paradox, where when we become really efficient at using any given natural resource, either through policy or technology improvements, demand for that resource and the price of the resource actually goes up, even though we need less of it because it becomes cheaper and we've become accustomed to it. And so I think similar things are going to happen to like intelligence and labor, because everyone's going to get so boosted. People are going to want really customized, personalized services. And I think that a lot of workers are going to have to be corporations of essentially one, and AI can help fill in the gaps. So that's what GPT Boss does. It is like a company in a box where you can hire employees that are domain experts in various business functions so that you as an operator can kind of get support to fill in the gaps of things that you're not so good at, and kind of become competent in all of the basic business functions that are required to make sales and generate an income in whatever it is that you want to do. And I hope the things that you want to do become weird and wild and wacky. I would love to see like artisanal needs take off in a major way, things along these lines, custom carpets, whatever the case is.
That's fantastic. Can you show us, show us what it is? And when you say, it's a virtual company with virtual employees, you mean that literally, right? So can you just walk us through a bit what it means? And also if you could connect the dots on the prompt engineering piece, would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, no problem. So here is the dashboard. This is what you get when you log in. Oh, GPT Boss just turned a day older. This was 50 this morning. So this dashboard needs a lot of work. I've got my Excalibur. I'm rewriting this. It's a little bit ugly. But basically, this is a wrapper that sits on top of GPT Playground, essentially, more or less. There's no special fine-tuning. There's no any kind of extra bells and whistles on top of it. What we have is a series of employees and a series of AI generators available through the dashboard. You can add an employee to your company. All of these avatars are made with Stable Diffusion 2.1. And you just click on them to hire them, click on them again to fire them. But once they're hired, you can open a chat and you can see part of the prompt here. So this is like the way that GPT Boss works is the prompt that gets sent to OpenAI is like, this is a conversation between somebody, your name, because I asked for your name on registration, and Declan Lane. And then this is the description that goes along with that. So then your message goes in, and then the computer is primed on who Declan Lane is, and it writes a response as Declan Lane. So in this case, I said that, like, this is just my own personal opinion about sales. I think that as a salesperson, you should be aggressive, but also like personable, like detect when somebody's kind of had enough, but you need to work like sales as a job. And a lot of people don't think about sales. A lot of people, when they're trying to do sales, get like wound up on like, I have to be perfectly prepared for this. I have to know everything about my customer. I need to make it like the perfect tuned pitch to them. It's not true. It's not helpful. So the purpose of Declan, I added this feature recently, business profiles. So these are like kind of further pre-prompts that you could add in. So we can chat with him. Hey, Declan, I have some leads to call today, but I'm nervous. Any tips? And he can kind of help you figure out, he'll get back to us eventually. It doesn't do the nifty Chat-GPT print to the screen thing. But when he gets back to us, he'll give us a step-by-step guide on making sure that the sales go smoothly today. So if you don't know anything about sales, this is a really good starting point to pick up the phone, start calling people, start selling, and run your business.
Wow. And you're seeing, talk about the folks that are using this. I assume you're seeing a wide gambit from, people who, don't even take advantage of the prompts that are here to people that are probably super users of this. I'm just curious what that range looks like and what you're learning as people are using the tool.
Yeah, so there's one employee, or there's one user that was particularly enamored with an employee named Jack, the copywriter. And what he did with Jack the Copywriter was build his own pre-prompt on top. One of the drawbacks of GPT Boss is that it is conversational from that original prompt of this is a conversation between you and this person. One of the drawbacks is that it's very conversational in nature. So a lot of people walk in and they expect like, okay, this person works for me. I'm going to put him to task. I'm going to crack the whip. Shit's going to get done around here. And it doesn't really work like that because it's like, it's basically a Slack chat, right? Like what work actually gets done over Slack. You assign a task and the person gets back to you later, and that's how the employees act. But this user, Chris Castillo of Propel Digital Marketing in Ontario, Canada, built a prompt that sits on top of Jack's prompt that gets, in his opinion, the best AI copywriting available. He says it beats Jasper. He says it beats like SpeedWrite and a couple of other things. He says it's even like better than ChatGPT's output because as this is primed as a human, the responses are a lot more humanistic. It's also primed for, you see, direct response marketing. So it has structure that matches direct response kind of sales that generates business goals like revenue and lead generation. And I don't have a copy of that prompt handy, but basically it's a big Google sheet where you plug in all of the variables of the product that you're offering, like the location where you work, who your audience is, what the product is, and a couple of others that I can't remember. Those all get fed into like a new text block in Excel. You copy that, put it into this chat with Jack, and then he writes the copy for you. And he burned through his monthly allowance in 2 days by doing this.
Wow.
Just like writing all of these kind of pieces of content that, again, he loves, approved, just send it in 30 seconds for his agency clients.
Huh. Wild. Did he burn through that? Did he burn through that kind of developing the technique, or he burned through it actually just generating content for clients?
Yeah, a fresh account, and he gave it to a VA, and he was like, do this and then that, and like gave them like the checklist of like, this is how you do the work. And she used the it was 200,000 OpenAI tokens in 2 days.
Wow.
And like every post that came out was like approved, and it's on like a money making site right now. So that's kind of my best use case, right? Is like, it just, you get everything that you need. It's very, very productive for you. There's no like hiccups. Everything that you want to get done gets done. I guess the only drawback for him is that he needed more compute, which I think when a lot of people get in tune with AI, that's the problem that they run into. It's the problem that like Microsoft and Google are facing even. They just don't have enough GPUs. So that's like the best case. And then the worst case is people who expect this like kind of just get it done behavior. So I had a user who asked the lead generating agent, I'll run a demo on this. So you could see this like spectacular failure. I really need to fix this, but it happens. Hey, what's this, Zachary? Can you get me a list of every barbershop in Denver? Yeah, I will definitely do that. I'll get started. I'll send you an email. He has no idea, right? There's no way that he can access this, but because it's conversational, he's like, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people struggle with this. Like I had a complaint on TikTok, like pretty much during this call, the guy said, oh, this app is worthless because the employees don't do anything. I asked the accountant to like file my taxes for me and it didn't happen. So there's no point.
Oh, wow. Right. Yeah. And this is because it's on GPT-3. It's not connected to the internet, right? So.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. I had a note to remind me to talk about like extending storage space later. I'm working on it. I'm working on connecting it to the internet and implementing long-term memory. So there's a startup called Pinecone that offers managed hosted vector DBs. So the way that AI like interacts with words is it converts these words into semantic tokens. They're like floating point representations of these numbers so that we don't get like homophonic collisions. Because the word bank can mean multiple things. You can think of like a river bank, banking an airplane, robbing a bank. So in machine learning language, these are all tokenized into specific separate numbers that carry the semantic meaning. And then that's what gets processed. So Pinecone hosts those numbers. And then you can take a message here, search that database for semantically similar tokens, so within like a certain range, and it'll return content that you could pass as further context with your prompts. So all of the chats that happen, I could send to Pinecone, and I'm working on a way for people to select what other kind of information they want. Like I would like to do eventually a Chrome plugin where if somebody's like reading a blog post, they could say, oh, email this to my agent, and then the blog content is available in this Pinecone database so that it's searchable, and then it's able to be provided as context during further employee interactions. And then as far as accessing the internet goes, Facebook released a paper recently called Toolformer. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. Kyle?
Yeah, it's in the Everyday AI newsletter, but I will admit I did not read the paper. I didn't even have Chat-GPT summarize it for me, but I got the concept.
So what the Facebook team did is they were able to they used GPT to parse unstructured data to create a set of fine tuning for a large language model that basically taught it how to use tools. So they would have questions like, or they would have statements like Joe Biden was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And then using GPT, they would reprocess that into a query lookup using few-shot learning. So they would take this example, like here's the piece of information, Joe Biden was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And then they would convert it to the question, Joe Biden was born in, query, where was Joe Biden born? And then you could string search for these query parameters or like special strings of words, and then execute other functions on top of that, so that essentially the large language model could convert or like receive a question and then call other APIs, other pieces of software with this, just on standard GPT-3. So that plus a method that's used by a project called LangChain, which essentially asks it interrogates the agents for what's going on in their like internal monologue, which is just a simple prompt like, what is Zach thinking that he has to do next? Those two things together can enable Zach to do things like execute searches and then receive HTML back through something like a Puppeteer, which is like a server-side browser, essentially. So you could parse that HTML, put that into Pinecone, and then that's passable as context as well. So it's not far away. Like letting these things out of the box and like online is not far away. It's difficult to do it on my own. My co-founder is non-technical, so I have to do kind of all this engineering at the same time as I'm managing customer support tickets, at the same time as I'm like redesigning my website for conversion rate optimization and doing things like this. There's a lot to do, but it's all very exciting.
You need more virtual employees.
Yeah.
Ken, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. You said that people are using this for copy, and then they just kind of they use that copy in their business. I'm wondering how you check for it. Does it do any kind of check for plagiarism? And then I guess I'm wondering how up to date the information is. Is it using information from 2023, or does it use kind of older information?
It's the same cutoff as ChatGPT. So that's April 2021.
I thought it was September, but September sometimes 2021.
Yeah. Well, GPT 3.5 finished training in April of 2023. So ChatGPT is an improvement on GPT 3.5 because it has some reinforcement learning by hand feeding. So there might be some new information inside of it, but the model finished in April. It probably didn't even start in April. And then the other one was the plagiarism checker. It does pass the plagiarism checker. And in fact, I was watching a story on the news. There was a fellow from Toronto, a student who wrote a plagiarism checker. And I wrote into the news and I was like, it doesn't catch my plagiarism. It doesn't catch my content. And they didn't run it.
Plagiarism can mean lots of different things, right? There's long, literal string plagiarism, but legally, you can completely reword something, and as long as you're expressing someone else's idea, it's still plagiarism, and that's almost impossible to detect mechanically.
And like, who owns an idea, right? Like, nihil novi sub salum. You're not coming up with something original, probably ever. It's just like who can lay claim to copyright first. Exactly, yeah. And so, but that's a difficult conversation.
Mackenzie, do you understand the mechanism for why a more sophisticated prompt, or the prompts that are in GPT Boss, generate content that's not caught by those checkers and others are? Is it the nature of the prompt?
Yes. It's because it's a conversation between two people. That's it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So ChatGPT's prompt is, you are an AI assistant that blah blah blah, and by like priming it as an AI, it talks like what it thinks an AI should talk like, and that's what the AI
Oh, that's
checkers are doing.
hilarious.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Ted's got a question.
Just real quick, I watch you on TikTok, man, and it just makes me happy every time one of your videos comes on.
Oh, excellent.
I was just wondering, how many customers do you have? I mean, I want to like dig too in your business. You don't have to tell us, but are you feeling momentum growing? Because I think what you're doing is awesome.
It's a mess. So I have 33,000 signups, 33,000 like free trials, and it's like $5 of revenue kind of per free trial. So I've given away a little bit of money. I have 113 subscribers out of 33,000 signups. And like, this is it's like 99.9%. Like the fact that I have customers at all is like just dust. It's a rounding error. So I have to do a lot of work on my design.
What's the, do you know what the reason is that people aren't converting? Do you think it's mostly interface?
Yeah, the interface is like really ugly, and also people are expecting what I've kind of talked about. They're like, oh, like it's 3 months since ChatGPT came out, so we should have something else that's amazing right now, and this is it. It's going to do all my work for me and answer my emails, and it's going to call leads, and it's going to generate a lead list, and blah 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 blah. And like it doesn't do any of that.
Mackenzie, do you think education is an issue? Because you're talking about using, like, I assume you're targeting small and mid-sized businesses. These people have no idea what AI even is. So like, I could totally see how they get in, like, oh, well, it couldn't do this for me. It's like, well, of course it couldn't do that for you. Like, are you crazy? But
yeah,
the average understanding of AI is so low that if you have all these people come in and testing it, as soon as they do something that's not going to work, it's like, oh, it's a stupid tool. Like, I'm not going to play it. So the education might be like the missing piece, but that's a hard play to fix.
I have a lot of people like begging for education.
Yeah.
I even added during the sign up flow, you have to like click a button that says, I understand the agents cannot access the internet. It's like, you can't use the app until you click yes on that. And still, I get these complaints.
Yeah.
So
if you have questions for Mackenzie, please raise your hand and ask. I think it's just fascinating stuff. I would love to hear from you while people are sort of gathering their thoughts to ask you questions. I know that some of the videos that I've watched of yours, that some people are attacking you, saying, "Hey, what you're doing is really bad. You're taking away jobs, things like that." I think you're quite articulate on these fronts on your videos. I'd love to just hear, what kind of feedback are you getting that's in that neighborhood, and then how are you dealing with it, and sort of where do you sit on that spectrum of, yeah, this is going to take jobs. Okay, how are we going to deal with that?
That's not my fault that like this is going to take jobs. Like GPT Boss is meant to like it's meant to like let you like, you don't have to do this whatever stupid thing that like somebody was paying you to do so that you could live. Like that's gone. That money is gone, and that had nothing to do with me. What GPT Boss is here to do is to like let you do something with your life that you wanted to do the entire time. And then all of the other stuff that you don't want to do that you would normally be paying somebody to do, no human being has to do that anymore. It just gets done. That's like my end goal, right? So it's like my intent is to like free people and help build new economic like institutions, like by an economic institution, I don't mean like a bank. I mean like the idea of a bank. Like we have to have things that are like a corporation or a company that just don't exist yet, because it's going to be such like an atomicized individual, and at the same time like rapidly growing scale where everyone's kind of on this like level playing field doing these things that are interesting to them. I don't think that it's going to be Star Trek anytime soon, but things like status, clout, discovery along these lines, I think, are going to become much more important, and new systems, new ways of doing things, and creativity in general, as it relates to like actually solving problems for people. This is another one that I talk about a lot, is like, if you want to start a business, make sure that you're solving human problems. And I go back to like Maslow's hierarchy all the time. Like just pick something there that you want to like work on, and then whatever solution you have for solving a human need, now you're free to do it. If like free is in like $0.
Awesome. I guess I have a question for you that's kind of related to the wrapper part of it. And I guess I'm not exactly sure what kind of employees that I'm still new to your product. And so I'm not exactly sure what kind of employees you're offering people. You mentioned earlier your story about the guy that wanted somebody to file his taxes and be kind of like an accountant. Do you see yourself expanding and offering an accountant wrapper, or like a psychology wrapper, or an HR wrapper? You know, and eventually you could even be competing with apps like Replica.
Yeah. So I did add a therapist because one of the problems of entrepreneurship is the isolation, and we usually rely on other human beings for regulation. Just like it's almost like a psychic process. Just being in the room with somebody else makes you feel better.
Exactly. I
Which,
feel so seen.
yeah, it doesn't like if you choose entrepreneurship, you're going to spend a lot of time in your bedroom. So the therapist is there to just like get the ickies out. It's not very good. I don't like it very much, but it's important to just like have a vent space that's not a customer, because that is a disaster. The HR I've had a few requests for, and I just don't know how to implement that because I don't know anything about HR. I have never worked like a corporate job or anything like that. I wasn't allowed in, so I don't know what an HR person even does. And then the other one was the accountant. And yeah, I talked about this a little bit earlier, like tool formers. LLMs are not good at math. ChatGPT does astonishingly well, and I think it's because it's using something similar to, I don't think it's all like RLHF. I think that there's some kind of like prompt diverter, right? There's like an embedding engine that OpenAI is using to figure out like, is this a question like what we've seen before? And then it's using a different kind of program for the math questions. So that my plan is to implement something similar. And further, I would like to eventually be able to integrate with as many kind of APIs as possible. I don't know if QuickBooks has an API, but it would be nice if I could just fill a form for somebody. That would be amazing. But it depends on like what's available to me.
Cool, thanks. Oscar, you have a question?
Yeah, Mackenzie, it's incredible. I'm just curious. You're gonna have a number of people who are like, you bastard, you're gonna ruin the lives of everyone. I imagine you're gonna have some people that are like, haha, you bastard, now I can ruin the lives of my employees and get everything done for free. Versus, haha, this helps me in achieving the set purpose, you know, that I have to like fulfill in order to get some money. Now I can, like, off the top of your head, are you seeing more of one type of person? Like, which kind of bastard are you seeing, like, you know, rise to the top? Is it like the capitalists who are just looking to, you know, what? Please, you know where I'm going with this.
Most of my users, my paid users, are people who run agencies. So the thing, like the value that they're getting out of GPT Boss is that the cognitive costs of context switching are lower. They have a large number of clients with like very different businesses and avatars, and they can kind of write all that down and then get into the groove much faster than previously.
So the real benefit for the majority of your paid users is not like, yes, reduction in force, we can raise the stock price by 0.0001 cent. It's actually, you know, we can actually focus on a lot of things and like do so effectively across each one of those points.
Yeah, and therefore earn money because they're like, or more of what they get is they get their life back because they took on these contracts. They're like, okay, well, I need to make $6,000 a month, so I have 3 clients that pay me $2,000, and now instead of working 3 full-time jobs, they work a part-time job and get to like play with their kids and do their dog and stuff.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about it like that. That the net economic impact is the same, but the amount of hours they have in their life goes up. That's fascinating.
The 4-hour work week is
feasible.
Possible.
There's this thing from biology called the Red Queen hypothesis. So I don't think that the 4-hour work week is coming, because as these things like integrate throughout society, the standards of labor will increase because the standards of status will increase as well. Like that wealth will disseminate into our lives. We will have a lot better lives because there's going to be people that are like, their purpose is to make our lives better. And that's all they do. We're going to have amazing like food and drink and art, and it's going to be way better than what we have right now. But I think that people will still work a lot because we compete on status. We evolved to do that. We can't turn it off.
I certainly hope so. All right, Leah, you have a question?
Yes, you mentioned to remind you about data sets in the comments. I'd love to. I think a lot about data sets.
Yeah, so that was the Pinecone DB that I was talking about earlier. I'm looking for a way to allow people to, like, one of the very first, like, can you customize it this way request that I had was for a fellow who runs a immigration consultancy in Germany. And he said the German government has been great about publishing all of their laws on immigration. And I would like to have a chatbot that my customers can talk to about these laws so I don't have to be the go-between. Especially because, I don't know if you guys know this, but GPT is, it has a Babelfish. Like, you can ask it questions in one language and then say, just respond in another. So this immigration consultant has a lot of customers who speak, I think the language is called Farsi, and obviously the documentation is in German, so they could ask the question in German and then get a response in Farsi that's like native to the customer's language. And that's just like out of like normal, totally normal GPT boss or GPT-3 operation. So for him, and for everyone, right? But like, he got the ball turning on, or the ball rolling on this. You need a way to be able to upload your own custom data into this kind of Pinecone DB so that you can context stuff fluidly and easily, so that you can answer questions like this. So you can have fluid Q&A on arbitrary data.
And Pinecone allows you to do that.
Yeah. So Pinecone is a it's a vector DB. So it takes like whatever unstructured language that you throw at it, and it just turns it into the semantic tokens that are later like searched on using algebraic functions that I do not understand because I'm just a software engineer. I'm not really a data guy.
That's awesome. Thanks. One, I want to give you a chance. You talked before we started the call a little bit about adding in things like, image rendering or animation, creating employees that can do things beyond text. I assume that's coming. We got to wrap it up, but I want to give you a chance to sort of talk about, sort of future vision of GPT Boss and things like, multimodal and things like that.
Yeah. So I was just, if I could share my screen one more time. I was just looking at this, which came out while we were on this call, up to the minute.
This is the world we're in.
Yeah. So there's a new, it was earlier today. So Microsoft just released this new Cosmos One kind of research set. So it integrates like image reading plus image generation, right? Because the captions can go back into an image generator. And look at this. It correctly answered an IQ test question by reading the image and the pattern. So this is, it is depending on the APIs that I get access to. I could cobble something together, but I don't think that I'm able to engineer like an LLM system like this just by like, okay, sometimes we make a call to OpenJourney and sometimes we make a call to DALL-E. Like, it's all going to depend on what I get access to kind of as an API consumer.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, one of the things we like to do here is a polite little golf clap for all of our speakers. So I think, Mackenzie, you have well earned your golf clap.
Thank you.
Liz, you have one question before we move on to Paul?
That was my attempt at a golf clap.
Okay, fantastic. Mackenzie, that was absolutely awesome. Thank you. Good luck. You keep making the TikToks. They make me smile as well. You blow me away how quickly you're doing the work, but also documenting it with those TikToks. It really does make a difference. So thanks for all that.
I would also like to
Thank you
add,
very much.
Mackenzie, that we are a wonderful and very helpful group of people. And so as you're building this, if you're looking for resources, I know you mentioned a few things you don't know anything about. There's probably a pretty good chance there's someone here that does. So please be part of our group, ask questions, reach out. I bet someone here can help when you have questions about that stuff. It's really
Sure,
nice.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And there's awareness. We can also kick the tires, and we'll get better at prompting than your bad customers. We promise. With that, I want to move it over to Paul Roetzer. If you don't know Paul Roetzer, you should follow him. He's got a podcast. He's with the Marketing AI Institute, which he could tell you about, but that was created in 2016. So like Richard Boyd, who spoke here a couple of weeks ago, Paul's been in this game long before it was popular. And I'm super excited to have you here. I know you're very busy. Your daughter had a game tonight. And you still made it to come speak to us. I really appreciate it. So with that, Paul, take it away. And I'm just, I couldn't be more thankful that you're here. And I whatever you want to talk about, have at it, because you know way more than we all do. So.
Yeah, it's great to be with everyone, and it was cool to be able to make it and hear Mackenzie's talk and what he's up to. It's really good to see. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'll give you a little background on myself. We had talked about, sort of an AI and future of creativity angle, knowing that there's, some creatives and some entrepreneurs and kind of a mix of people in the audience. But I'll just kind of give you my background and some perspective on where I think we are and where I think this might all be heading, and then really just answer any questions I can and try and be helpful in the time we've got. So my background was actually, I came out of journalism school, so I'm a writer by trade, which is an important part of my story. My wife is was a painting major in college, so she is an artist by trade. My 11-year-old daughter wants to be an artist, and my 9-year-old son wants to be a video game developer. So I tell you that first because I think it's important to understand the angle I come at AI from. So I started my agency in 2005. We became HubSpot's first partner in 2007. So sort of my little known claim to fame is I have a conference room named after me at HubSpot because we were the origin of their partner program. So back in 2007, I looked at their model. So, rewind ourselves back. I think we're all, roughly, at least we were all around for this time period. So 2005, YouTube is created. 2006, Facebook and Twitter become publicly available. 2007, the iPhone is created. So a lot changed in the time period from when I started my agency in November of 2005 to fall of 2007 when I became aware of HubSpot. And so as an agency, I was like, wow, what is this social media stuff? What's this blogging thing? Like, the world is changing. We got to figure this stuff out. So I actually subscribed to HubSpot and got a license for $250 a month to teach my team. I wanted access to their training. I didn't even care about the software yet. I just wanted to teach my team about blogging and social media and this thing called inbound marketing. And then I quickly realized the opportunity to take our standardized services set pricing model and wrap it around HubSpot software. So we started selling HubSpot software before they ever actually thought about having a partner network. So it was very, very early at this time. I was working directly with the founders and their early team, and we just started selling it. And so like the founders were sending us their friends. I would get a call like, hey, I'm on this board. This is like one of their chief revenue officers. Like, I'm on a board. Can you like talk to these guys? They just raised $50 million. Can you go in there and like figure out their marketing play and social media and blogging and stuff like this? So there's a wild phase in my life. I was, 29 or something. I started the agency at 27. So, my late 20s, early 30s. And so that's what we did. And so we were at the forefront of the marketing technology boom at that time and the inbound marketing movement. And, ended up proving to HubSpot that there was a viable market to build around agencies, which today accounts for like 45% of their revenue, which is why I have a conference room named after me. It's like we proved the concept of this value-added reseller program for them. So 2011 rolls around and I sign a deal to write a book called The Marketing Agency Blueprint. So I decide to share my story of everything we're doing with HubSpot, nothing about AI yet. And how I thought that the world of agencies was going to change from a billing model structure to services offered to talent, all this stuff. So I write this book in spring of 2011, 2 months after IBM Watson had won on Jeopardy and beat Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings. So I finished the manuscript for the book, and anybody who's written a book knows then you have like a 8-month waiting period before the book actually sees the light of day. And so between the manuscript being done and the book coming out, I go try and figure out what is IBM Watson? How did it do that? And it actually, for me, had a very specific use case. So I graduated from college in 2000. And when a client would come to us and say, hey, how do we grow our leads? How do we reduce churn? How do we build our audience? In 2000, there was like 5 to 10 ways to do that. By 2011, there was like 10,000 ways to do that. So what I had believed was the human mind was actually incapable of an optimal marketing strategy and budget allocation. And so I looked at Watson and said, I don't know what that is or how it does what it does, but can it help me predict where I should spend my money and what my strategy should be? So I started down the path. I read a book called Automate This by Christopher Steiner in 2012. And he told about the intelligent automation of different industries by AI, including Wall Street. And I looked at Wall Street. I'm like, well, okay, so when they have to make a trade, there's like thousands of variables that goes into this, especially if you're a hedge fund. And that's way more complicated than how to spend $100,000 of marketing budget, right? Well, if they're doing it in Wall Street, then it has to work here, right? So I go under the assumption that whatever this AI thing is, I'll figure it out, but it's got to be able to help with marketing strategy. So fast forward to 2014, 15, I write my second book. In that 50,000 word manuscript, there's about 700 words related to artificial intelligence. So I basically theorized the building of an intelligence engine, and that if I was like HubSpot or, you know, Adobe or Oracle, whatever, if I had all the data and I knew the actions people took to achieve results, I could probably build a predictive model around what I should do with my money and strategies. So that tiny excerpt of the book became the only thing people wanted me to do public speaking about. I don't think anybody even knows what the rest of the book was about. So I started doing like South by Southwest, traveling the world, doing talks. The government had me come in and do about like how to use AI in recruiting. So this is like 2015, 16. And I mentioned like, you know, it was a lonely road. Like I kind of had my Fermi paradox moment for a couple of years. If you're familiar with Fermi paradox, like we look out in the universe, it's like, where's all the intelligent life? That's how I felt about AI. It's like, where is it all? Like, it should be everywhere. Why aren't all these enterprises doing it? Why aren't we talking about it in marketing? Like, what is going on with everybody? And so I was like, you know what? We have to tell the story of this. So go back to my history. I'm a storyteller by trade. I ran a content agency. I was a journalism major. So I said, well, we're not going to build it, but let's tell the story of it. So we started interviewing AI experts, entrepreneurs, people who were actually at the forefront building this. It was like, let's just figure out what's going on. Like, why aren't people using it? Where is all this tech? And so, you know, that's what we did. And so I started the Institute in 2016 as a DBA of my agency. And then fast forward to 2018, we had like 7,000 subscribers to the Institute. It's just like a media and event and an education company. We're just trying to help people figure this stuff out. And it was like eating up all of my time. Like I was consumed with AI was going to be the future. And so I launched a marketing AI conference that was going to be in 2019. And we split off the Institute as its own company, built the conference business, lost a couple $100,000 probably in the first year, probably more than that. I funded it myself in year one, burned through whatever reserves I had. And then 2020 hits, and as you all know, the pandemic welcomed us into 2020. And owning an event business that was burning cash wasn't the best place to be.
Man.
Yeah, so we launched Online Academy. So we took all the people that were going to speak that year and we turned it into online courses. And I was like, screw it, let's just go into online education. Sound like a great idea. The market wasn't ready for it. You know, it's like we had people buy it, but it wasn't like McKinsey. I know that feeling. You put your life into something, it's like, shit, this is gonna be awesome, and then like nobody buys it. So yeah, 2020 was rough. Nobody was using AI. Nobody else was really talking about it. We did get 300 people from 12 countries to the first conference in 2019. So I thought we were onto something. Like I thought we were heading the right direction. 2021 we did virtual. That sucked. Raised $1 million seed round. 2022 we were back in person and no one was traveling for events. So not the best business in the world, I would say, but I believed where we were going. Like I believed it was going to happen, and we had to survive and get to the other side and get people experiencing AI and using it. DALL-E started to move the needle last year. So I would go give talks, and then rather than people being like, this sounds awesome, and not having anywhere to go try something, they could go get DALL-E right away and be blown away by the technology. So that was the first step to me in moving the needle. And then Chat-GPT blew the doors off. So, you know, our website, give you some perspective, our website traffic was up 7% year over year through November 30th of last year. December, it was up 32%. January of 2023, it was up 101%. Our podcast, to give you perspective on podcasts, so the first 7-day metric, how many downloads in the first 7 days, we had averaged 70 on the podcast. The podcast was a year and a half old. We're averaging around 800 or 900 now the first 7 days. No, actually, I take that back. It's up to 1,300. So like we're talking about exponential growth curves of interest and awareness. So what's happened is we have this skyrocket of interest. But the downside to ChatGPT is people think that's AI. That's it. Like, I'm going to figure out ChatGPT and I'm going to get some AI writing tools and like I'm good. And they have no idea what a language model is. They don't know why they hallucinate. They don't know why they don't remember things. They don't know why they get the facts wrong. They don't know that you can also use AI for like 1,000 other use cases. And so that's where we're at today is like, we have people who are afraid. So you have like, I'm advising colleges right now on how to deal with this, because you have deans of schools, business schools, who don't know what to do. They don't know how to prepare their students, journalism school directors. I had a call last week with the head of a major school district for K through 12 in Ohio. And they're trying to figure this out right now. I have a wife who's an artist. I have a daughter who wants to be an artist. Like, people are afraid because they don't understand. And they're looking out ahead and thinking, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, this creativity that made me, made me human, fulfilled me, you know, my ability to imagine things and bring them to life. Now you're telling me this thing can do it faster than me, better than me. Like, that's a really hard thing for people to process. And so a lot of, I mean, I kind of half joke, like I play a psychologist half the time. Like it's like, no. Like you're a designer, you're a video producer, you're a writer. You can use these tools 10 times better than someone who isn't that thing. Like if you want to get value out of a Dolly, if you're a designer or an illustrator, I promise you can be better at it than I am, because I can't visualize anything. I'm not visual. So, but I'm a writer, so I can get more out of the writing tool than you. So once I wrote a paper right after Dolly came out, and I had to introduce it to my daughter, and I had to kind of like explain what I thought was going to happen. I wrote something that said, every professional has to do right now is look at AI and say, it's going to take something from me. What is going to be lost in my profession? My feeling as a human is going to take part of what makes us human from me. But I can also gain something. So what is going to be lost? What is going to be gained? And when is it going to happen? And I don't care if you're an accountant, an engineer, a product designer, a coder, a writer, an artist, like all of us, it's going to happen. And so I think that's where we're at right now, is we're trying to prepare the world for not only where we are today, but anyone who knows, like on this call, who's working in this space and seeing what's possible, maybe seeing around the corners. I've seen some stuff that's coming next from a language model perspective. We're not ready. We're not ready as an industry. We're not ready as a society for what's about to happen. And I think groups like this are really important. I think open dialogue is really important. And I think we have one chance to get AI right. I'll kind of wrap with brief thoughts on the sentience thing and like AGI, like Sam Altman did the big AGI thing last Friday, which totally ruined my night because I had to like analyze it. But
it was a lot.
Yeah. My feeling is, are we going to get to AGI? Are we going to get to sentience? I don't think it matters, honestly. Like, I think what we have already is so powerful, and this is just the beginning, and it's going to confuse people. It's going to make people like the dude from Google who got fired, Blake. It's going to make them think it is something it's not. Now, it's not sentient, and it's not even close to being that. Might never be that, but I don't think it ever matters, actually. I don't know. There was like some crazy ass thing I saw yesterday about, apparently there's like some site where people can build avatars and then like fall in love with these things, and they have like
replicate.
Is that what it is? Where they like build these relationships with these avatars, and apparently the person like shut off that ability for some reason all of a sudden, and like these people who had built this relationship with a digital being all of a sudden didn't have that. So again, they know it's a digital being, but they connected with it in a very human way. And we can't change that about humanity. We can't change that people believe shit that's not real. We can't change that we don't know what facts are anymore as a society. And so if you give a machine the ability to take on human-like conversation and emergent abilities that Microsoft didn't know was going to happen, like there is stuff coming out of these models that is not sentient, but they didn't know it was there. And so those emergent capabilities are going to happen at a faster pace, and they're going to be crazier and more powerful. And so I just like, a lot of my life right now is spent trying to just get people up to speed on the foundational knowledge needed to have really important conversations beyond the cool tools we can build. I'm talking about responsible application of this stuff for the betterment of society. And again, it can go really wrong, and I don't want to see that happen.
Awesome.
I have no idea if I talk about creativity at all in that, but there you go.
Oh, I have about 1 million questions, but we've got 3 questions from the community. So let's go.
All right, so we'll start with Big Dipper. Are you there, Big Dipper?
Yeah, you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
I actually did not mean to raise my hand, but that was phenomenal. And I actually brought up a lot of hindsight things for me. So thank you for speaking on what you spoke on, but my hand was misraised.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to Roger.
Hi. So one of the things you said really resonates with something that we, in the earlier days of this group, we had a lot of discussion about this issue of is AI going to take jobs like that, especially from creative people. And I think we've kind of reached a consensus, which is very much like what you were saying, which is that, yes, if you sort of turn the other way from AI and refuse to interact with it, it probably is going to take your job. But if you use AI to do your job better, then it's probably not going to take your job. It's going to change your job, but you keep doing it. But if the people who just refuse to have anything to do with it, very well may be in danger, because people who aren't an AI assisted will definitely be at a competitive disadvantage to those who are.
Yeah, so there's a quote that I use all the time in my talks, that AI won't replace marketers, but marketers who use AI will replace marketers who don't.
Exactly.
Now, I can't take credit for the concept there. So the idea actually came from a paper I read in 2018. Well, the paper's from 2018. I read it 2 months ago by a radiologist at Stanford. So the same thing was happening. They feared that radiology as a profession was dead, that AI was going to be able to read images better than any radiologist. And so the paper said AI won't replace radiologists, but radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't. So I've come to believe you can literally replace that noun with anything: writers, designers, architects, artists, whatever. So I think we are entering a phase, yes, where you either ignore AI and you will be obsoleted at some point. You will lose your job. Might be, if you're an artist, it might be in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But if you're a marketer and you're a copywriter, it's like 12 months. Like there's no way you can do your job and remain competitive. And so I think people have to really look at what is going to be lost, what is going to be gained, and when is it going to happen. And if the when is in like the next 12 to 18 months, then you better move really fast. But the problem I see in society and in the business world is people don't understand the AI enough to answer the when is it going to happen question.
Yep.
The other quick comment I wanted to make was that regarding people's humanity being tied up in their jobs, I think we're awfully shallow in our thinking about that. I don't think someone's ability to fill in fields in a web form is essential to the humanity. So losing your job being a form filler outer isn't having your sense of humanity stripped from you. I think we've hoodwinked people into thinking that doing a lot of really very specific kind of stupid things to earn money is essential to the humanity, when it's really not.
No, but generative AI is, and it's taking humanity, like, it's taking things people find fulfilling that they think are uniquely human, like video production, like generating images. I did this talk to 150 students who are multimedia students at Ohio University 3 weeks ago. When I showed the Gen 1 thing from Runway, of the video to video transfer that they just introduced, their jaws were on the floor. I had 3 students come up to me afterwards and ask if they needed to change their major.
Yeah.
I had a director of the school ask me if she should retire because she didn't want to deal with this. This stuff it affects people in a very, very big way when it's the generative AI piece. I agree 100% on intelligent automation, repetitive tasks that nobody enjoys anyway. 100%. No one's losing sleep over that. But you show this stuff to an artist and you have existential moments like where they're questioning their future.
Yeah, those are good points. All right, Oscar, you have a question?
Yeah, Paul, so thank you. That was wonderful. And since you've been doing, like, you've been traveling the world and espousing the good word, I guess, is there like a commonality amongst the types of people who are excited and get it versus the types of people who are going to get pitchforks and torches? Is it young v old? Is it artist v engineer? Is it, you know, like, are there any commonalities with the people that, like, they may not get it, but they're excited about it and they are pro it, versus the people that are like, kill this thing right now?
Yeah, I think, you know, to Roger's point, the people who don't enjoy the repetitive, like just data-driven, process-driven things that just fulfill their days, you're saying like, oh, I don't have to do those 10 things every day. Like, bring it on. Like, let's go. When you're talking about, I'm a writer, like, I don't think AI can write the way I write, or I don't want it to be able to write, or like, those are the people who are a little more resistant. But they're also the people who've always resisted change and technology advancements. Because I always teach people, like, it's just a tool. It's smarter technology, but it's the most powerful tool we've ever seen. And so, but if you resisted technological change previously, you're likely going to continue to resist it. I do see a lot of people later in their careers at companies and in education who are looking out ahead and saying, oh, I'm going to retire in 3 to 5 anyway. Like, I do not want to have to figure this out. And they're trying to place some bets. Can I just like delay having to do something drastic here and let it be someone else's problem, because this is not something I want to have to learn right now. So yeah, it is very, I will say, really smart people. When I give a talk about AI in marketing or AI in business, it is like almost every time one of the first 3 to 5 questions starts straying into politics, government. What are we doing about this? You know, from a privacy perspective, they don't want to talk about use cases in marketing or technology. They immediately start connecting the dots of like, holy crap, like, you mean it can do this? Or like, what are we doing about it here? And so that's where I like, it makes for the most fascinating conversations, honestly. But yeah, I would say it is a mix, but people who generally embrace technology embrace the idea of AI.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for that, Oscar. DG, you're up.
Yeah, Paul, thank you. This is terrific. And I just love the practical way you're sort of approaching so much of this and sharing the information. I'm just interested in what you think about what you said in terms of responsibility. You know, one of the earliest things I think I saw semi-related to AI in terms of deep fake. And I remember there was a presentation from some of the early developers, and some folks called out right away, you know, this is going to lead to, you know, people doing, you know, fake politicians and, you know, fake this and fake that. And one of the developers, you know, just was doing the whole Jurassic Park bit. Well, we just built it. You know, what people do with it, that's not our problem. So how do you insert a responsibility model into anything like that, you know, like this, when that is probably still, you know, we're off to the races, genius out of the bottle, you know, off we go.
So like, I get asked all the time how I sleep at night, because, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff and talking about it and reading about it. I will say I have a lot of concerns right now around how OpenAI is approaching this, and not just OpenAI, but like others, but they're the leader of the pack at the moment. And what Sam Altman put out on Friday was a very disturbing viewpoint on AGI, in my opinion. And I talked about this in our podcast this week at length, but I mean, they're basically saying this could be the worst thing we ever create for humanity. We don't know how to actually prevent it from being the worst thing, but we're going to just race forward and hopefully figure out the guardrails in the process, and maybe work with some people to try and put some guardrails around it together. But there is no clear definition of what they even think AGI is. They've given multiple definitions, actually. There's, and again, I don't even care if you get to AGI. Let's just say advanced AI systems, more advanced than we see today, that we know are in these research labs, and they're just holding them right now. So they don't have a plan, and they don't have a way to measure, at least that they're sharing publicly, that to measure progress toward whatever that end game is, advanced AI, whatever we want to call it. So I don't trust the tech companies to be the shepherds of whatever these advanced AI systems are. They have too much commercial gain to be trusted to be the final advocator of this. Government is not going to keep up. That we know. The EU Act, we were told the AI Act in the EU, just watch that and it'll be in America in 2 years and like that'll protect everything. They can't figure out the technical specifications around the EU AI Act. So we can't just assume they're going to figure that out because they don't know how they're going to govern whatever rules they put in place. So what that ends up doing is it puts the impetus on individuals and corporations to actually be the people who shepherd AI responsibly into the world. And that's a really dangerous game too. So I will share, I'm not here to like be promoting, stuff we've published and stuff, but I'll put this into the link. So I kind of arrived at a point 2 weeks ago. I was like, I have to put something into the world on this. Like the only place you can find responsible AI principles right now is like Adobe, Google, and the major tech companies. If you go looking at like just standard brands and associations, they don't have responsible AI principles. They don't even know how to build them because they don't know the pitfalls. So I just sat down on a Friday morning. I just wrote it. And I said, here, it's Creative Commons, like take it, do whatever you want with it. But if you have no responsible AI principles in your organization, at least start here. You can cut and paste, edit, whatever you want to do. So I just kind of outlined like the 12 things I thought every company should be thinking about right now, whether you're building the stuff or using the stuff. And more importantly, using the stuff. Because at least the people building the stuff know what they should be asking. They just turn the other way a lot of times because there's a lot of gray areas right now. But you have a choice when you use the stuff once we understand what it's capable of.
That's awesome. Can I ask, Paul, do you think that the Sam Altman piece, it felt to me like PR cover for the front page article of Bing for Microsoft a bit.
No, I think you're right. I think it was partially PR play. So if people don't know, Chat-GPT was brought to the world in a 2-week time period.
Yeah.
That was not some grand scheme where they were like, hey, like end of this year, let's launch a chatbot. No, he dictated, launched chatbot in 2 weeks on 2-year-old tech, and a bunch of people at OpenAI didn't even think it was going to work. So ChatGPT wasn't brought into the world as some grand scheme. And I think a lot of their messaging right now follows a similar pattern. I think they're very reactive and they put things out. It was I've lived my life in communications. I built crisis communications plans for brands. I'm a strategic writer by trade. That piece was so cringeworthy. Like it was so hard to get through, not only as someone who believes in responsible AI, but just as a communications professional. It's so bad. Like there's so many holes in it. It talks in like these really vague circles with no clarity around anything they're actually doing. All I can think is based on a series of tweets and some other stuff they put out, I think they are gearing up to release the next version and they are trying to prepare us for it.
So it's covered. Yeah, because it did have, we're going to put some stuff out and maybe pull it back and maybe not. Yeah.
It's bad. It's so bad. I hope ChatGPT didn't write it or GPT-4 didn't write it because it's like not a great first entry to the world if that's what that was.
All right, I have a question. I'm kind of curious about the sort of. It sounds like you have a lot of experience on the business side of things, and you mentioned earlier that you gave a speech to 100 or so students. I'm kind of curious about the educational side of things and where AI comes into play. And I guess the question isn't really fully formed in my head, but I'm just kind of wondering where you see the future of AI in education and whether they would be offering, degrees in prompt crafting or even taking a seat at the table in developing these AI principles that you were talking about earlier.
I think they will. So like the first person that did a review of our book when it came out is actually a professor at Harvard Business School who's building Harvard's first AI course for their MBA program. And he's using our book as like a foundational piece for that program. But that's great. That also, again, it's Harvard's first course on AI. So if Harvard's just building a course on AI for their business school, you can imagine what's happening at other universities. It's probably just starting to, ChatGPT made a lot of them have the conversation. They weren't proactive. My big issue, and I have told friends of mine in education, including presidents of schools and deans of business schools, is that we have let AI be a computer science course and major for history for the last 80 years of AI. Like there are no business classes on AI. They're not an intro to AI for all. And so years ago, I told some friends at different universities, there should be an intro to AI class that should be a it's like English 101. Like they have to understand the principles. And so I think that universities are going to move really slow. One, because they don't have points of view on it and principles yet. They're going to need to get those. Two, once you have a plan, who's going to teach it? Like, who knows this stuff in the business world? There are no professors that can do this stuff. So they're going to need people to come in and like just teach a single class within the larger, semester or something. So I just don't expect universities to move very quickly here.
Isn't AI moving awfully fast?
Roger, we got a couple of people with their hands up. So if you want to raise your hand and contribute, we'll do it that way. Appreciate it. Doug, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, appreciate your comments. I did want to mention the Future of Life Institute has in 2017 had information on their manifestos or their guidance as well.
That's great. Thank you.
To take a look at it. It'll be interesting to compare and contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll ask Chat-GPT for that.
Give me a summarization.
Yeah, of the two and compare and contrast. Yeah,
and make it into a table.
Yeah, exactly. I was I was on a panel on digital media, the future of digital media and the metaverse, but because of this Chat-GPT, I talked a lot about that because personally I think generative AI, that just generative by definition generates, right, and creates, and how does humanity interact with that? So like I said, this new term, there's two terms that have just popped up right recently is prompt engineering and guardrails, right? Like, okay, how do a human create and give the right prompts, right? And then the guardrails, so how to keep the AI from staying within its parameter set, right? And I'm a big fan of Mack's Tagmart personally and Future of Life Institute, and how we make sure that as we're creating AI to stay within its goals. I tend to be more optimistic, about the technology in general. Actually, I'm more concerned about humanity blowing up the world than AI blowing up the world. So just, but though there should be some concern about AI, I guess, as well. But, it's like, how do we keep AI, understand, like any tool, how I constantly say is AI is a tool, and you need to understand the tool and how to use it properly, just like any tool that you're using. When's it proper to use it? When is it not proper to use it? And I'm a big believer in what your comment was, is everyone should learn how to, understand the benefits and the limitations and work within these new tools. So just like the steam engine came along, or electricity came along, or nuclear energy came along, the computer came along, the internet, this is a tool. It's a very powerful tool, just like the other ones. And we just have to, educate. I'm a big believer in education and making sure everyone understands the limitations of it. And I think that would help make be more productive as a society. So those are some of my comments.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Jane, you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm a content writer, and I've just recently started implementing Chat-GPT into my process. And like when it came out, it was content writers everywhere were all doom and gloom. Like this is the end of creativity as we know it. And that hasn't been my experience, but I'm kind of wondering, what's the other side of the spectrum? Like, what's the other vision if it's not doom and gloom? Like for those of us who are using it and adapting, like what's the future? Like what is possible? What is the potential? Like how can we be better at our jobs and be more creative?
Yeah, I mean, they're great questions, and there's a lot of uncertainty for sure with writers. I will say that as someone, I consider myself an above average writer. I don't use AI writing tools in my writing process. I mean, I have 6 of them, and when I publish once or twice a day to LinkedIn. I've never used an AI tool, not even edit. I don't even use Grammarly for it. So like, it is not part of my process because I enjoy the process of critical thinking, forming thoughts, analyzing my own thoughts, and then forming my words and my voice and my tone. And I don't need AI to do that for me. Like, I have no interest in it doing it for me. Now, when I'm doing long form content, I will like say, hey, build me an outline for this topic. And I will go in and do it. I will do it for ideation. I will use it for content summarization. We use it for our podcast. We do transcription and summarization for the podcast. So my team uses writing tools, but for my personal writing, I don't need it. And I have no interest in using it to do that. I don't want the AI to create the words for me. I think what it did is it democratized the power of words to average writers. So someone who couldn't form words, couldn't write emails, couldn't write proposals, couldn't create blog posts or LinkedIn shares, they now have the ability to do that. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. You know, like in the world I came from, there was a lot of ghostwriting going on. There's a lot of CEOs who are terrible writers who have books, best-selling books out. They couldn't write 100 words together if their life depended on it. So like, I came from a world where it's like, I get it. Like, people have something to say, but they don't have the ability to express themselves in words. There's things I see in my mind, but I can't draw them. I can't design them in Photoshop. So it's like, is it bad that we're giving creativity to people who maybe didn't have it? I don't think it is. But I think to your point about like, but I'm a writer and like other people can maybe now do some of the things I do. I wrote something last week that I think we're going to move towards a phase where content that's more human actually wins. I think people are going to crave content they know for a fact didn't come from AI. Not that the AI content is bad. Like, it can still create value. I'm not saying we're not going to have AI content everywhere, but like, you know, I didn't script this. You are listening to me talk. I have none of this written down. Like, it is me just giving you my guidance and my thoughts. And to you, that is probably way more valuable than if I did a Twitter thread of 10 things you should know about AI right now that, you know, 95% I had ChatGPT write that thing. So I think like podcasts, live events, clear editorials with perspective, emotion, points of view, like, I think that stuff's going to become premium. And so I think as a great writer, a good writer, storytelling is going to take on more importance, and letting your humanity come through in that writing is going to be critical.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Lee, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, we basically just covered it. I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the things I heard you talk about was a sense that this is what's coming, so I'm going to do it. And then you were a little bit ahead of your time. And I feel like that happened a number of times in your career. And I've had a very similar experience in the transition from film photography to digital photography. I had a very similar experience. I was shooting digital before anyone else was. I had a website up, and people didn't have any idea what I meant when I said, can I FTP you images, right? Or I'd put images up on my website I had shot yesterday with my digital camera. People couldn't understand how that happened. Like, you scan the film in, how that happened. So I had my time. And I think sometimes I'm having conversations like that around AI right now too, right? And I'm already like, I'm way over here with AI, and people aren't thinking about it at all. And I guess my question was, which you sort of covered, was what does this look like for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years? And yeah, just your thoughts on that, which we sort of already covered, but
yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I think the language models are going to get significantly more powerful, and I don't think we're ready for that. There's going to be major advancements in video generation this year that I don't think we're ready for. So I mean, just in the generative AI space, the stuff we were seeing now is going to get way more powerful. But I wrote a piece last week called World of Bits. So there's actually a research paper in 2017 called World of Bits that came from a dude named Andrej Karpathy, who was a founding member of OpenAI back in 2015 and went on to be the senior director of AI at Tesla, where he built the computer vision team to do autonomous driving for Tesla. He left Tesla last year, and then on February 8th on Twitter announced he was going back to OpenAI. And I was trying to figure out why. Like, what is he going back to OpenAI for? So I went and found the research paper from 2017 and read it. And I realized what he's doing is he's going back to work on World of Bits. World of Bits is you and I are world of atoms. We exist in human form. World of bits is everything that exists online. And the theory back in 2017 was that we could give AI agents the ability to control a keyboard and mouse the same way a human would, that it could actually fill out forms and, book things for us and stuff like that. And they ran into obstacles. If you read the conclusion of that paper, that the tech wasn't ready yet. I think they think the tech is ready now. And so action transformers are actually where everyone's racing. It's a company called Adept that raised like $100 million. Inflection AI raised a bunch of money. Actually, a dude from DeepMind went and started that company. Cohere, I know, is working on it. OpenAI is working on it. Google, I'm sure, is working on it. So I think we're going to see a near-term future where the AI agents will actually be able to take actions on our behalf, like booking flights and booking. So I would watch for that space. Action is going to be the thing to see.
Making pictures.
Yeah.
Working the camera.
And with that said, we'll toss it back to Kyle.
Yeah, I know we have a couple of questions there. Sorry, Roger and Kenny, we'll get to you next time. But I want to end these things on time to be cognizant of your time. I really appreciate your time, Paul. This was amazingly insightful, and thank you. And I think well-deserved golf clap for you as well.
Thank you.
I thought what you talked about combined with what McKinsey talked about were really interesting together. I mean, I think this idea of future of work, it's coming whether we want it to or not. And, this group is about leaning in and going, okay, what can we do about this? So having someone like you here that's been, I can only admit I would be bitter if I were in it as long as you, but now all of a sudden it's here. And I really appreciate you being here because you're so clear on this stuff. It makes a huge difference. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I really appreciated how articulately you described things too. Like, I think this can get very complicated and very hard to get our heads around. I thought you made it very accessible. So
thank you.
That was great. Final thing, Allie, are you here quickly?
I saw her comment in chat.
Hey, yes, I am. Sorry. Hey,
Hi,
I'm
Allie.
here.
So Allie's here. So
yes, I was just gonna give everyone a quick invitation to come join us on Discord if you haven't already. We've been doing some fun themed image generation with Midjourney. I also have been trying to figure out a way to integrate like a GPT bot into our Discord. I haven't quite been successful yet, but hey, maybe someone on here can come onto the Discord and help me figure that out. That would be really awesome. But yeah, so our current theme for image generation is watercolor, which is a really great one to get started with. If you haven't done much playing with Midjourney yet, if you haven't played with it at all, you can get started right away in our Discord. You get like 25 images for free. And there's lots of nice people there who will explain how to do it and help you if you get stuck and all of that. So it's a good place to experiment for the first time.
That's it. And we're a minute over. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks all.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.